Good morning, students, and welcome to today's class. How are you? I hope you all are fine and you all are doing well. So, today we are going to start with the chapter that is My Childhood. Okay, so this chapter, My Childhood, is taken as an extract from the autobiographical books Wings of Fire by APJ Abdul Kalam. Here, Mr. Kalam was one of the greatest scientists of India. We all know he is also known as the Missile Man and also the 11th President of India. Talk about his childhood days in this, particularly his autobiography, and from which this extract that we are going to study today. So, how it goes like this is that I was born into a middle class Tamil family in island town of Rameshwaram in the erstwhile Madras state. My father, Jainulabdin, had neither much formal education nor much wealth. Despite these disadvantages, he possessed great innate wisdom and true generosity of spirit. He had an idle helpmate in my mother, Ashiamma, and I do not recall the exact number of people she fed every day, but I am quite certain that far more outsiders ate with us than all the members of our family put together. Okay, so he says that he was born in a middle class family in the island town of Rameshwaram and it was situated in the erstwhile Madras. His father, whose name was Jainulabdin, in which जो J है APJ अब्दुल कलाम के नाम का वो actually stand भी इसीलिए करता है, in which his father Miss Jainuddin had neither much formal education nor much wealth. Despite these disadvantages, वो क्या possess करते थे? A great innate wisdom and true generosity of spirit. उनकी एक आइडल हेल्पमेट थी in the form of my mother whose name was Ashi Amma. And he says that I do not recall the exact number of people that she used to feed every day, but I am quite certain कि जितने भी लोग हो ना, at least the number of members in our family, the people who came and ate in our family was more than that. Outsiders were more and number of family members was less when it comes to the feeding. ठीक है, I was one of many children, a short boy with rather undistinguished looks, born to tall and handsome parents, and we lived in our ancestral house, which was built in the middle of the 19th century. And he says that it was a fairly large pakka house made of limestone and brick on the mosque street in Rameshwaram. He says कि वो भी बहुत से बच्चों जैसे ही एक बच्चे थे. He was rather short and उनकी बहुत ही undistinguished सी looks थी. And he says that I was born to very tall and handsome parents, and I was that is बहुत good looking parents थे उनके. And where they used to live, they used to live in the ancestral house. And वो house कहाँ पे बना था? It was built in the middle 19th century. Okay, but being in that century also the house was Pakka house and it was made from limestone and brick and on the mosque street in Rameshwaram. He says that his austere father used to avoid all the inessential comforts and luxuries, and however, all the necessities Jyotina they were provided for in terms of food, in terms of medicine and clothes. And in fact, he says, I would say mine was very secure childhood, both materially and emotionally. Now, when you have the love of your parents and support of your family, and you have all other material that is the basic necessities of your life are fulfilled, then we can say that life we feel that it is secured both emotionally as well as materially. So here also Abdul Kalam says that his childhood was the most secure one, both materially and both emotionally, because he had a great love and support of the family. Now the time of the Second World War came, it broke out, and the year was 1939. When he says I was 8 years old, and for reasons, he says I have never been able to understand what that suddenly a sudden demand for tamarind seeds erupted in the market. टैमराइन दैट इज इमली, समझते हो आप? इमली के बीज जो होते हैं उसकी डिमांड सडनली आ गई मार्केट के अंदर. ठीक है, नाउ उससे क्या हुआ? नाउ ही गॉट अ वर्क टू डू, दैट इज वी कैन से. नाउ व्हाट ही यूज्ड टू डू, ही यूज्ड टू कलेक्ट द टैमराइन सीड्स द होल डे, एंड बाय इवनिंग जितना भी वो कलेक्ट कर पाते थे ना, ही यूज्ड टू गो एंड सेल इट ऑन द प्रोविजन शॉप. वो प्रोविजन शॉप पे ऑन द मॉस्क स्ट्रीट जो शॉप थी वहां पे वो उसको सेल करके आते थे. And a day's collection is going to fetch him what? Fetch him the princely sum of 1 anna. एक आना की उनको जो थी अर्निंग हो जाती थी. Now he says my brother-in-law Jalaluddin would tell me the stories about the war, which I would later attempt to trace in the headlines in Dinamani, our area. being isolated, was completely unaffected by the war. But soon India was forced to join the Allied forces and something like a state of emergency was declared. The first casualty came in the form of the suspension of the train halt at Rameshwaram station. Newspaper had to be bundled and thrown from the moving train on the Rameshwaram road between Rameshwaram and Dhanusakoti. That forced my cousin Samsudin, who distributed the newspapers in Rameshwaram, to look for a helping hand to catch the bundles as if naturally. I filled the slot. Samsudin helped me earn my first wages. Half a century later, I can still feel the surge in the surge of pride in earning of my money for the first time. Now he says, अब उन्होंने बोला that now मेरे जो brother in law थे whose name was Jalaluddin, he used to tell me the stories of the war that were going around, and I used to locate the same stories in the newspaper whose name was Dinamani in its headlines. And he says that our area where we used to live is a little isolated area in the city. So being isolated, we were least affected by anything. Okay. So now being unaffected by the war activities, he says, but soon India was forced to join the Allied forces and something like a state of emergency was declared. Now, when a state of emergency is declared, कुछ casualties होती हैं. So the first casualty came कि जो एक train थी, ठीक है, there was a train and the name of the train, जो train थी actually not name, the train थी, वो travel करती थी. In which route the train used to travel, and it used to start from Rameshwaram and on between Dhanu Sakodi. So now what it has to be done कि पहले जो न्यूज़पेपर के बंडल्स ट्रेन में आते थे लोड होके और ले लिए जाते थे, द सेम थिंग हैपेंस, अभी भी वही होता है. बट डिफरेंस इज अर्लियर उसको स्टेशन पे बहुत ही प्रॉपरली हैंड ओवर किया जाता था. अभी व्हेन द ट्रेन इज ऑन दिस ट्रैक तो उससे ट्रेन में से क्या किया जाता है, इट इज बीइंग ड्रॉप डाउन ऑन द थ्रोन ऑन द रोड्स एंड इट यूज्ड टू बी कलेक्टेड एंड देन डिस्ट्रीब्यूटेड इन द टाउन. So Samsudin, in order to collect the newspapers and deliver them on time, he was now looking for a helping hand. That a person who used to come and help him in doing this thing. So what happens? उन्होंने ये जब चीज की तो ultimately the gap जो slot था, the empty slot, that was very naturally filled by Abdul Kalam. And he says that Samsudin, in this way, he helped me earn my first wages. And half a century later, he says, I can still feel the surge of pride in my own earning the money for the first time. It's very obvious कि आपके पास में money कितना भी हो, either you earn 1 rupee or either you earn 1 lakh. But if it is your earned and your earned first your earned money, तो उसकी ना एक feeling, एक happiness अलग ही होती है. Every child is born with some inherited characteristics into a specific socio-economic and emotional environment and trained in certain ways by figures of authority. I inherited self-discipline and honesty from my father. From my mother, I inherited faith in goodness and deep kindness. And so did my three brothers and sisters. I had three friends in my childhood, Ramananda Shastri, Arvindan, and Shiv Prakashan. And all these boys were from the Orthodox Hindu Brahmin families. As children, none of us ever felt any difference among ourselves because of our religious differences. जो upbringing थी वो हमारी ऐसी नहीं थी. Now he says that every child when is born उसके अंदर कुछ inherited characteristics होते हैं. Some characteristics are from the father and some are from the mother. Now he says that I have inherited honesty and self-discipline from my father, and from my mother I have inherited the goodness and deep kindness. And so did my three brothers and a sister. He says, I also have three very close friends in my childhood, and that is Ramananda Shastri, Arvindan, and Shiv Prakashan. All these boys were from the Orthodox Hindu Brahmin families. Now, Brahmin families ke boys being best friend with a Muslim in that Orthodox time is a thing of great surprise, है ना? Result वो कहते हैं ना talk of the town हो जाता है, बिल्कुल वैसी चीज है. Now he says, as children, we don't know any kind of difference because we have never been taught like that. And among us, one, in fact, was the son of the highest priest, that is Pakshi Lakshmana Shastri. He was the high priest of the Rameshwaram temple. Now, later Ramananda also took to the priesthood, and Arvindan he went into the business of arranging the transports for the visiting of pilgrims. जो तीर्थ यात्री जाते हैं यात्रा करने, उनके transports arrange करना. And Shiv Prakashan, he became the catering contractor for the Southern Railways. Now he says that there is during the annual Shri Sitaram Kalyanam ceremony, that is a kind of, we can say, दशहरा दिवाली सॉर्ट ऑफ थिंग, तो जो भी होती है जब सीताराम जी की जो शादी की जो होती है सिचुएशंस, वो आर फैमिली यूज्ड टू अरेंज बोट्स विद स्पेशल प्लेटफॉर्म फॉर कैरिंग आइडल्स ऑफ लॉर्ड from the temple to the marriage site. So Sitaram Kalyanam ceremony, that is marriage ceremony. So during the marriage ceremonies, what they used to do, they used to arrange the boats, and इस बोट से वो लोग एक स्पेशल प्लेटफॉर्म बनाते थे जिसपे वो लॉर्ड की आइडल को कैरी करते थे फ्रॉम द टेम्पल टू द मैरिज साइड, and that is situated in the middle of the pond. और वो pond को क्या कहते थे, रामा तीर्थ, which was near the house. Events from Ramayana and from the life of prophets, वो क्या थे, the bedtime stories थी, ठीक है. My mother and grandmother would tell the children in our family, जो हमारी मदर और हमारी ग्रैंडमदर बच्चों को सुनाती थी, यार नानी और दादी की जो कहानियां होती है ना, वही. One day when I was in the 5th standard at the Rameshwaram Elementary School, a new teacher came in our class. I used to wear a cap which marked me as a Muslim, and I always sat in the front row next to the Ramananda Shastri. He says one day a thing happened that a teacher came in my class, and that I was sitting in the first row with my friend Ramananda Shastri just next to him. And I used to wear a cap on my head and which marked me that I am a Muslim. So, and he used to wear a secret thread. This marked that he was a pure Brahmin. Now, the new teacher could not stomach the Hindu priest's son with a Muslim boy, in accordance with our social ranking, as the new teacher saw it. I was asked to go and sit on the back bench. I felt very sad, and so did Ramananda Shastri. He looked utterly downcast as I shifted to my seat in the last row. The image of him weeping when I shifted to the last row left a lasting impression on me. And he says that the teacher came and he was not able to stomach up a Muslim boy sitting with a Brahmin boy. So according to the social ranking, he asked me to go and sit on the back bench. I was very sad. And but more sad than me and sad and depressed was my friend Ramananda Shastri. He was very depressed. And the image of his weeping, the thing was that I was not able to digest. वो मुझे बहुत बुरी लगी, and it had a long lasting impression on me. After school, we went home and we told our respective parents कि हमारे साथ क्या हुआ. Lakshmana Shastri, he summoned the teacher and in our presence told the teacher that he would not spread the poison of social inequality and communal disharmony, we can say intolerance, in the minds of innocent children. उन्होंने उनको बोला कि आप छोटे बच्चों के दिमाग में तो ये जो हमारे ये जो जाति और इस चीज का जो भेदभाव है, कम से कम एटलीस्ट डू नॉट फीड इट इन द माइंड ऑफ दीज स्मॉल इनोसेंट चिल्ड्रन. Now he bluntly asked the teacher that either you apologize to these children or you can quit the school and the island. Not only did the teacher regret his behavior, but also a strong sense of conviction. Conviction is that is a strong opinion or a belief Lakshmana Shastri conveyed ultimately. It reformed this young teacher. Okay. Now, further what it says one whole day. One day he says that एक दिन मुझे the small society of Rameshwaram, it was very rigid in the terms of segregation of different social groups. But however he says कि जो मेरे science teacher थे, Shiva Subramanya Iyer, he was so a very orthodox Brahmin. He was having a very conservative wife. She was so conservative that it was something of a rebel. अगर वो कुछ भी तरह की ऐसे कुछ barriers को cross करते थे तो. But he did the best to break these social barriers so that people from varying backgrounds could mingle and that people could easily spend hours together. And he used to spend hours with me and would say, Kalam, I want you to develop so that you are on par with the highly educated people of the big cities. One day he says he invited me to his home for a meal. His wife was horrified with this idea that a Muslim boy being invited to dine in her ritually pure kitchen. No, ritually pure means जिसने सारे outside influences से for the just we can say the observance of the religion उसने उस चीज को बहुत protect करके रखा है. तो वहां पे आके कोई उसको impure कर जाए, she is not going to bear that. So she refused that I am not going to serve the food in her kitchen. And Shiva Subramanya Iyer, he did not perturb, he did not got angry with his wife. बट इंस्टेड वो उन्होंने कोई झगड़ा नहीं किया, वो कोई नाराज नहीं हुए, बट इंस्टेड ही डिड व्हाट, he served with his own hands and he just sat beside me to eat his meal. His wife watched us from behind. So he says that rather he told me to sit down and he sat beside me to eat his meal and he watched us from and he served me with his own hand. And his wife, she was observing us. She was watching us from behind the kitchen door. And I wondered whether she had observed any difference in the way I ate rice, I drank water, or cleaned the floor after the meal. When I was leaving his house, Shiva Subramanya Iyer invited me to join him for the dinner again the next weekend. Observing my hesitation, he says he told me not to get upset. Now, मुझे आज ही इतना ज्यादा बुरा लग रहा था and he says कि तुम next week भी आ जाना. I felt so embarrassed कि मेरे को तो समझ में नहीं आ रहा था. I was so hesitant कि मुझे next week आना भी चाहिए कि नहीं. But Shiva Subramanya, he looked at my embarrassment on the face and he just told me, observing my hesitation, he told me that Kalam, do not get upset. He says that once you decide to change the system, these problems have to be confronted. कि एक बार जब आपने सोच लिया ना कि आपको इन चीज को बदलना है, तो बदलाव लाना इज नॉट वेरी इजी थिंग. बदलाव जब आप लाते हो तो आपको बहुत सी प्रॉब्लम्स को कन्फ्रंट करना पड़ता है एंड द थिंग हैज हैपेंड. So when I visited his house the next week, Shiva Subramanya Iyer's wife took me inside her kitchen. So when he says that when I visited the house नेक्स्ट वीक शिवा सुब्रमण्य अय्यर की जो वाइफ थी, शी टुक मी इनसाइड हर किचन, वो मुझे अपने किचन में ले गई एंड सर्व मी फूड विद हर ओन हैंड्स एंड उन्होंने मुझे अपने हाथों से खाना सर्व किया. Then the Second World War was over and India's freedom was imminent. Second World War over, इंडिया की फ्रीडम बिल्कुल imminent in front of the people. Indians will build their own India. Indians अपना खुद का इंडिया बिल्ड करेंगे, ऐसा किसने डिक्लेयर किया? गांधी जी. एंड दैट नाउ आप मेरे हिंदुस्तानी अपने हिंदुस्तान की रचना करेंगे. The whole country was filled with an unprecedented optimism. That is, the whole country was filled with positive vibes and positivity was spread all around. I asked my father for permission to leave Rameshwaram and study at the district headquarters in Ramnathpuram. So looking at all the peaceful situation, I also asked my father that please do permit me to leave Rameshwaram because for my further studies, I also want to go out. मुझे भी बाहर जाना है and study at the district headquarters in Ramnathpuram. Now, asking for the permission, what was said? He told me as if thinking aloud, Abul, I know you have to go away to grow. Does the seagull not fly across the sun alone and without a nest? He quoted Khalil Gibran to my hesitant mother. Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. Now, यहाँ पे further, what did the mother say? She says that for his higher education, when Kalam sought the permission from his father to leave Rameshwaram and study at the district headquarters in Ramnathpuram, his father allowed him to do so. He consoled his wife, who was emotional about the departure of her child. And he told her quoting Khalil Gibran, a Persian philosopher, ने कहा था, who said that parents are means for children to become independent. Parents सिर्फ एक mean होते हैं for the children to become independent, to lead their lives their way, ताकि वो अपनी life को अपने तरीके से जी सकें. They don't belong to the parents themselves. They do not belong to the parents themselves because you may give them your love. They say कि आप उनको अपना प्यार दे दो, but not your thoughts. But अपने विचार उन पे मत थोपो, for they have their own thoughts, क्योंकि उनके पास खुद के thoughts भी होते हैं. So parents, being a parent, you are just the means to lead their lives their way, but they do not belong to the parents themselves. They have their own life, they have their own thought process. So you just give them the love, not your thoughts, because they have their own thoughts. By APJ Abdul Kalam, an extract from Wings of Fire. So this was a very beautiful story, very beautiful part of a childhood of such a famous person that we got to read, and it was really the since the childhood we can say the man was living an amazing life, and he from since we can say the childhood he was having great thoughts, and that is why he became such a successful and such a famous personality and the respectable man in this nation. So this is all. With this, the chapter is complete. Just go through it and I hope you'll understand it well as I have tried to explain it well to you. Okay, chalo, bye and take care of yourself.